what is Maven and what is not Maven and what are their objectives. Now let's look into how Maven works. How Maven works. So before we look into the flow of Maven work, so first let's understand the terminology that was built around Maven. So the core concepts of Maven. So the first important terminology, the term that you should know is POM file. POM, project object model file. So what are the form files that you can see on the screen? A POM file. This is how it looks. So these are the components generally a POM file consists of. So POM files, project object model files, POM files are XML file that contains information related to project and configuration information such as dependencies, the first one, source directory, plugin goals, plugins. Here you see plugins, what are plugins to be brought and installed so that whatever the orders, whatever commands that you have written inside your script can be executed. Then life cycle phases, goals, and build profiles. So this all will be used by Maven to build the project. So when you should execute a Maven command, you give a Maven a POM files to execute the commands. Maven basically reads this form.xml file to accomplish its configuration and operations. So now inside the pom.xml file itself, we have seen some terminology, that's dependency. So what does a dependency mean? What does a dependency mean? From where will we get these dependencies? So dependencies are external Java libraries required for the project and repositories. So where this dependencies will be located, where will be stored. So repositories are directories of these packaged jar files. So basically all these dependencies will be packaged in jar files and stored in repositories. So the local repository is just a directory on your machine hard drive. So we have seen, so every time we used to say repository, repository, remote repository, local repository. So when we say local repository, the local repository is just a directory on your machine hard drive. So if the dependencies are not found in the local Maven repository, so Maven downloads them from a central Maven repository and puts them in your local repository. So then we will see few more terms in this. Build life cycles, phases and goals. You see that? Life cycle, phases, goals. We'll see what are they mean. So a build life cycle consists of a sequence of build phases, and each build phase consists of a sequence of goals. So Maven command is the name of a build life cycle, phase or goal. If a life cycle is requested, executed by giving Maven command, so all build phases in that life cycle are executed also. So if a build phase is requested, executed, all build phases before it in the defined sequence are also executed too. So then we'll see what is a plugin. So build plugins are used to perform specific goal. You can add a plugin to the POM file, that's form.xml file, Maven has some standard plugins you can use, and you can also implement your own Java plugin. Okay, so this is what your POM file and the terminology that's built around that POM file or pom.xml file. We know what is Maven, and we also know what is Maven repository. So now let's look into the whole ecosystem once, how this Maven works as a tool. So first, as I have told you, you have to write your POM file. So there you have to mention what dependencies you have to bring up here, and then what all plugins to be downloaded, and life cycle phases, life cycles, and then phases, what all phases it should follow, and goals, what to be executed. And once your pom.xml file is written, you just save that file, and then our Maven comes into the picture. So Maven brings this form.xml file, a read form.xml file, then downloads dependencies that are mentioned inside the form.xml file into local repository from central or a remote repository. For all these dependencies, there will be one repository that's maintained. Inside that repository, all these dependencies will be stored. So when you so this Maven, the second activity will be done by this Maven is to download those dependencies which are defined inside the pom.xml file into our local repository. So then the next step will be done by the Maven is to execute life cycles. See, you have mentioned phases, you have mentioned goals, you have mentioned and plugins, etc. defines it, specifies the build path. So that's what uh, Maven reads the pom.xml file, and then once it read through the pom.xml file, and it execute whatever is mentioned in that pom.xml file. So then once all done, it's gonna build a repository. So after that, Maven build it will build a repository. In that repository, you're gonna find out your artifact. That's what the final step of Maven repository. If you want to put in a nutshell, read pom.xml file and download all the dependencies, and then store it in your local repository. Then execute lifecycle phases, goals, and build profiles and plugins. Once all done, you create a Maven repository, and inside that you store your artifact.